The gown was the color of mud after a week of rain. Carenza smoothed her hands over the shapeless fabric, studying her reflection in the tarnished mirror of her chamber. The dress hung like a sack from her shoulders, washing out her complexion and hiding every curve beneath yards of dull, lifeless brown. Perfect. You cannot be serious. Her handmaid, Bria, stood in the doorway with horror etched across her face. Your father is hosting the most important guest in a century, and you intend to greet him looking like a scullery maid? That is precisely the point. Carenza turned away from the mirror, ignoring the flicker of guilt in her chest. Father wants to parade me before his guests like a prized mare at auction. I have no intention of being sold tonight. But my lady, they say the Alpha King of Wraithmore is— I know what they say. Carenza's voice came out sharper than she intended. She knew better than anyone what they said about Cadarn of Wraithmore. That he was savage and beautiful. That he commanded wolves with a whisper and armies with a glance. That his eyes held the gold of ancient magic, and his touch could make a woman forget her own name. She knew because she had seen him once, 3 summers ago, at the Tournament of Thorns. The memory surfaced unbidden, as it always did when his name was spoken. She had been 17, invisible among the crowd, when a young boy had stumbled into the fighting pit during the final match. The warriors hadn't noticed the child frozen with terror between their clashing blades, but Cadarn had. Carenza had watched him throw aside his weapon and his advantage, diving to shield the boy with his own body. The opposing blade had caught his shoulder, drawing a crimson line across his skin, but he hadn't flinched. He had simply gathered the trembling child in his arms and carried him to safety, forfeiting the match without a second glance. In that moment, as blood dripped from his wound and the crowd roared their confusion, Cadarn's eyes had swept across the assembly, and for one breathless heartbeat his gaze had found hers. Carenza had felt something crack open inside her chest, something that had never fully closed again. 3 years of dreams. 3 years of wondering if she had imagined that moment of connection. 3 years of knowing a man like him would never look twice at a minor lord's daughter with 2 wild hair and the strange gift she kept hidden from the world. My lady? Bria's voice pulled her back to the present. Are you well? You've gone pale. I am fine. Carenza straightened her spine beneath the ugly dress. I simply have no desire to make a spectacle of myself tonight. Father's guest will have plenty of noble beauties vying for his attention. He won't notice me at all. She needed him not to notice her, because if Cadarn of Wraithmore looked at her again with those fierce amber eyes, if he came close enough for her to smell the cedar and smoke that had clung to him at the Shore tournament, Carenza was not certain she could survive it. The great hall blazed with candlelight and false laughter. Carenza slipped through a servant's entrance, pressing herself against the shadowed wall. Her father stood near the massive hearth, his face flushed with wine and importance. He hasn't arrived yet, Carenza breathed with relief. She found a spot near the far corner, half hidden behind a stone pillar. From here, she could catch one glimpse of him, just one, and then slip away before— The great doors swung open. The hall fell silent with the weight of a collective held breath. He walked in like a storm given flesh, and Carenza felt the air leave her lungs. Cadarn of Wraithmore was exactly as she remembered, and nothing like she remembered at all. Taller than any man present, he moved with the fluid grace of a predator who had never known fear. His dark hair fell past his shoulders, wild and untamed, and his face held the sharp beauty of winter itself. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Gold. Burnished, ancient gold that seemed to glow with an inner light. Those eyes swept across the assembled nobility with barely concealed disinterest as lord after lord bowed and lady after lady curtsied. Carenza pressed herself further behind the pillar, suddenly aware of how loudly her heart was beating. Don't look this way, she whispered to herself. Please don't. His gaze found her across the crowded hall. Carenza stopped breathing. For a moment, the world around them seemed to blur and fade. The chatter of nobles became distant static. The candlelight dimmed to nothing. There was only Kadirn, staring at her with an expression she couldn't name, and the thundering of her own pulse in her ears. Then something shifted in his face. Recognition, sharp and sudden, followed by something that looked almost like hunger. No. Carenza's whisper was barely audible. He can't possibly remember? But Kadirn was already moving, cutting through the crowd with purposeful strides that parted the nobility like a blade through silk. Lords attempted to intercept him with greetings. Ladies positioned themselves in his path with practiced grace. He ignored them all, his burning gaze never leaving her face. Carenza's back hit the wall. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. He stopped before her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, close enough that his scent washed over her. Cedar and wood smoke, and something untamed that made her knees weak. "I found you." His voice was low and rough, meant for her ears alone. 3 years I have searched, and you've been hiding in plain sight all along. Carenza stared up at him, her mouth dry and her heart thundering against her ribs. "I don't understand," she whispered. Kadirn's molten eyes blazed with an intensity that stole her breath. "You will," he said softly. "Before this night ends, little wolf, you will understand everything. And then you will never hide from me again." Carenza couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at the man who had haunted her dreams for 3 years. "I think there's been a mistake," she managed, her voice emerging as barely more than a whisper. "We've never met, haven't we?" Kadirn's head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed more animal than human. "The Tournament of Thorns. You wore a blue dress the color of morning sky. You stood near the eastern gate with your hands clasped so tightly your knuckles went white when that child fell into the pit." He remembered. He remembered everything. "You saw me," she said faintly. "I have seen nothing else since." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "Every face in every crowd I have searched for yours. Every gathering, every feast, every cursed diplomatic function, I have hoped to find the woman whose eyes held such anguish for a child who wasn't hers. Whose soul called to mine across a blood-soaked arena?" Carenza's pulse raced. This wasn't possible. Men like Kadirn didn't search for women like her. "You're the Alpha King," she said, as if reminding them both of the insurmountable chasm between their stations. "I'm nobody." Something flickered in his amber eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "You are the furthest thing from nobody." His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away, and when she didn't, his fingers brushed against her cheek with devastating gentleness. "You are—" The touch ignited something inside her. Carenza gasped as heat flooded through her veins, as something deep within her chest cracked open like a door long sealed. Her soul sight, the gift she had spent her entire life suppressing, blazed to life without her permission. And she saw him. Not the man standing before her, but the truth of what he was. A wolf made of silver moonlight and ancient power prowled beneath his skin, magnificent and terrifying and achingly beautiful. Threads of magic wound through his being like veins of precious metal through stone. And there, at the very core of him, she saw something that made her soul weep with recognition. A matching thread, a golden cord that stretched between them, binding his essence to hers. "What?" Carenza stumbled backward, her hand flying to her chest. "What is that? What are you?" Kadirn's expression shifted from wonder to concern. "What did you see?" "I don't know what you mean," she lied desperately. "I didn't see anything." "You're trembling." He stepped closer, and Carenza's gift flared again, showing her the wolf beneath his skin pacing with agitation, with need, with something that looked terrifyingly like devotion. "Your eyes changed. Just for a moment they held silver light. Panic clawed at Carence's throat. No one had ever seen her gift activate. She had spent her life perfecting her control, burying her soul sight so deep that even she sometimes forgot it existed. Lady Carenza! Her father's booming voice cut through her spiraling fear. Lord Aldrich approached, with a merchant's smile stretched across his florid face. I see you've met our honored guest, though I must apologize for my daughter's appearance, Your Majesty. I cannot fathom why she chose to dress so inappropriately for such an auspicious occasion. Shame burned through Carence's cheeks. She waited for Kadern's eyes to sweep over her drab gown, waited for the dismissal that would surely follow now that he truly saw what stood before him. Instead, the Alpha King turned to her father with a coldness that made the air temperature drop. Your daughter, Kadern said softly, each word precise as a blade, is the most exquisitely dressed woman in this hall. While others have wrapped themselves in silk and desperation, she has clothed herself in authenticity. I find it refreshing beyond measure. Lord Aldrich's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Furthermore, Kadern continued, his voice carrying just enough to reach the nearby nobles who had paused to eavesdrop, I would consider it a personal insult if anyone were to suggest otherwise. Lady Carence's worth is not measured in fabric or jewels. It is measured in the courage to be genuine in a room full of pretenders. Silence rippled outward from their small group. Lady Orlaith, who had been approaching with obvious intent, froze mid-step, her beautiful face twisting with barely concealed fury. Your Majesty is too kind, Carenza whispered, not trusting her voice for more. I am never kind, without reason. Kadern's attention returned to her, and the intensity in his gaze made her feel like the only person in the world. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. The night air hit her face like a blessing as they stepped onto the moonlit terrace. Gardens stretched before them, silver and shadow beneath the full moon's glow. Why are you doing this? She asked. Why search for me? Why defend me? You don't know me. I know enough. Kadern stepped closer, and the moonlight caught the angles of his face, transforming him into something otherworldly. I know that when you saw that child in danger, you felt his fear as your own. I know that you hide yourself away not from modesty but from terror of being truly known. And I know, his voice dropped to barely more than a breath, that you carry a gift you've never shared with another living soul. Carenza felt ice spread through her veins. How could you possibly? Because I felt it when I touched you. Kadern's eyes blazed wolf gold in the darkness. I felt your power brush against mine like a wolf recognizing its mate. His next words were barely audible, meant only for her, and they shattered everything she thought she knew. I know what you are, Carenza. The question is, do you? Carenza stumbled backward, her heel catching on an uneven stone. Before she could fall, Kadern's hand shot out, gripping her arm with gentle firmness and steadying her. The moment his skin touched hers again, her soul sight erupted. This time, she couldn't look away. The wolf beneath his flesh turned its massive head toward her, and its eyes held the same fierce gold as the man before her. It didn't snarl or threaten. Instead, it lowered its great head in something that looked almost like supplication. You see him, Kadern breathed. You see my wolf. I don't understand. Carence's voice cracked. I've never been able to see anyone so clearly. Not like this. It's always been fragments, impressions. But you're like looking into the sun. It hurts. Kadern released her immediately. Forgive me. I didn't know the bond would affect your gift so strongly. Bond? Carenza lowered her hand, staring at him. What bond? What are you talking about? For the first time since he'd found her in the great hall, uncertainty flickered across Kadern's features. He turned away, presenting his profile to the moonlight as he stared out across the darkened gardens. Among my people, there are legends, he said slowly. Stories of wolves who are born incomplete. We walk through centuries searching for the one soul that mirrors our own. Most never find their match. Most learn to live with the hollow ache of incompleteness. He paused. I had accepted that fate. Until you. Carence's heart stuttered in her chest. You're saying I'm your... You felt it too. He cut in, turning back to face her. When I touched you. That surge of recognition. That sense of something clicking into place. She wanted to deny it, to tell him he was mad, that fairy tales about fated souls were stories told to children, but the words wouldn't come, because she had felt it. That impossible rightness when his skin met hers, the golden thread connecting his essence to her own. Even if what you're saying is true, she whispered, it changes nothing. I'm not one of your people, I'm human. You're not entirely human. Kaderin's voice was gentle but certain. You never have been. The soul sight you carry is an ancient power, one that existed long before my kind learned to walk as men. It's the reason you survived seeing my wolf. Any ordinary human would have been driven mad by the sight. Her back hit the garden wall. Cold stone pressed through the thin fabric of her dress as Kaderin stopped before her, close enough that his breath stirred the loose strands of her hair. I've frightened you. His voice roughened with something that sounded like self-directed anger. That was never my intention. I'm not frightened of you. The words escaped before Carenza could stop them. And they were true. Despite everything, despite his revelations and his intensity and the wolf that prowled beneath his skin, she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of herself. Of how much she wanted to believe him. Of how desperately she yearned to step closer instead of away. Then what frightens you? This. She pressed her hand against her own chest, against the wild drumming of her heart. The way I feel when you look at me. I've wanted... She caught herself. Tell me. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. What have you wanted, little wolf? The endearment shattered something inside her. You. I've wanted you for 3 years. I've dreamed of you every night since the tournament. I wore this horrible dress tonight because I knew if you noticed me, if you looked at me the way you're looking at me right now, I wouldn't be able to bear it when you walked away. Something in Kaderin's expression broke open. Oh, my heart. The words emerged as barely more than a groan. I could never walk away from you. Don't you understand? I've been dying by inches every day I couldn't find you. His hands rose to cup her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I shouldn't do this, Kadern murmured. You deserve courtship, flowers and poetry and time to understand what you are. I should walk away right now and... Don't. The word tore from Carence's throat. Please don't walk away again. Kadern made a sound low in his chest, something between a groan and a growl. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, and she could feel him trembling with the effort of restraint. You don't know what you're asking. The wolf wants to claim you. If I stay, if I touch you any more than this, I don't know if I can stop him. Carence's soul sight flared unbidden, and she saw the truth of his words. The silver wolf paced frantically behind his eyes, magnificent and desperate, straining against the chains of Kaderin's control. Then don't stop him, she whispered. Kaderin's eyes flew open, and she gasped. The burnished gold had consumed the entirety of his irises, blazing with supernatural light. When he spoke, his voice had deepened into something barely human. Run! The word was a command and a plea in one. If you have any sense of self-preservation, you'll run from me now while I can still let you go. Carenza held his gaze, watching the wolf surge closer to the surface. Her heart should have been racing with fear. Instead, it raced with anticipation. No. The single syllable broke something in him. Kadern's mouth crashed against hers with 3 years of desperate longing. The kiss was hungry and claiming and overwhelming, and Carenza felt herself dissolving into it, her fingers tangling in his wild dark hair as she pulled him closer. His hand slid from her face to her waist, lifting her as though she weighed nothing, pressing her more firmly against the garden wall. She felt his teeth graze her lower lip, felt his growl vibrate through her chest. Then his mouth left hers, trailing fire down her jaw, down her throat, and Carenza tilted her head back in offering without fully understanding why. She felt his breath hot against the curve where her neck met her shoulder, felt his lips press there, tender and reverent, and then pain, sharp and shocking and immediate. His teeth sank into her flesh, and Carenza screamed. But the sound emerged as something caught between agony and ecstasy. Fire poured from the bite into her bloodstream, racing through her veins like liquid starlight. Her vision went white. Through the haze of sensation she heard Kadern's voice, wrecked with horror. "No, what have I done?" But Carenza couldn't answer. The fire had reached her heart, and it was changing, transforming and becoming something new. Her soul sight exploded outward with blinding force, showing her everything at once, the golden thread between them now blazing like a sun, the wolf inside her own chest that she'd never known existed. Then darkness swallowed her whole, and Carenza knew nothing more. Carenza woke to the taste of blood and moonlight on her tongue. She lay on something soft, surrounded by warmth, and a scent that had haunted her dreams for 3 years, cedar and wood smoke, and something feral that now felt like home. For a moment she kept her eyes closed, convinced she was still dreaming. Then memory crashed through her like a winter flood. The garden, the kiss, the bite. Her eyes flew open, and she found herself staring at an unfamiliar ceiling of rough-hewn timber. She was in a bed, covered in furs softer than anything she'd ever touched. Firelight danced across the walls, casting long shadows that seemed almost alive. "Easy." The voice came from beside her, and Carenza turned her head to find Kadern sitting in a chair by the bed. His face was haggard, dark circles bruising the skin beneath his amber eyes. He looked as though he hadn't slept in days. "Don't try to move too quickly." "What happened?" Her voice emerged as a rasp. "Where am I?" "My private chambers in Wraithmoor. You've been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days? Carenza choked on the water he offered. "My father will be." "Your father knows you're here. He was surprisingly amenable once I explained the situation." Carenza's stomach turned. She could imagine exactly how that conversation had gone. Lord Aldrich would have seen only the opportunity. His unremarkable daughter suddenly valuable as a bargaining chip with the Alpha King. "The bite," she said, her hand rising instinctively to her neck. Her fingers found smooth skin where there should have been torn flesh. "I don't understand." "You bit me. I felt it." "The wound healed within hours. Your body accepted the mark far more quickly than should have been possible." "Mark?" Carenza felt dread pool in her stomach. "What mark? What did you do to me?" Kadern rose abruptly from the chair, pacing to the window with movements that seemed more wolf than man. When he spoke, his voice was wrecked with guilt. "Among my people, there is a claiming bite. It's how wolves mark their mates, binding their souls for eternity." His voice was wrecked with guilt. "I lost control. The wolf took over, and before I could stop him, I had marked you." "You're saying we're mated?" "I'm saying I began the mating process without your consent. I claimed you like an animal instead of courting you like the queen you deserve to be." The raw anguish in his voice cut through her confusion. Without thinking, she pushed back the furs and swung her legs over the side of the bed. "Wait." Kadern crossed the room in 2 strides, his hands hovering near her shoulders without quite touching. "You shouldn't be standing yet. The transformation takes time, and your body is still—" "Transformation?" Carenza's heart lurched. What transformation? The color drained from Kadarn's face. The healer was supposed to explain. He said quietly. When you woke, she was supposed to. Explain what? Carenza gripped his arms, her nails digging into his flesh. Kadarn, what is happening to me? He caught her hands in his, and she felt the tremor running through him. When he spoke, each word seemed to cost him dearly. The claiming bite doesn't just bind souls, Carenza. It changes the one who receives it. His thumbs traced circles on her wrists, as though he couldn't bear not to touch her. You're becoming like us. You're becoming a wolf. The room tilted around her. Carenza's knees buckled, and Kadarn caught her, lifting her easily back onto the bed. She clung to him, her fingers twisted in his shirt as the full weight of his words crashed over her. That's why you can smell so keenly now, he continued, his voice hoarse. Why the firelight seems brighter, why my heartbeat sounds like thunder in your ears. Your senses are awakening. And soon, the rest will follow. Carenza pressed her face against his chest, breathing in his scent as though it could anchor her to sanity. Forest and smoke and something primal that now felt like home. The wolf I saw inside you, she whispered. There's one growing inside me too, isn't there? Kadarn's arms tightened around her. Yes. Before she could respond, the chamber door burst open. Your Majesty. A warrior in leather armor stood in the doorway, his face ashen with urgency. Riders approaching from the south, they bear Lord Aldrich's banner. Kadarn went rigid against her. My father? Carenza pulled back to look at the warrior. Why would my father come here with armed riders? The warrior's eyes flickered to her, then back to Kadarn. They're not here for a visit, my lady. They've brought soldiers. Hundreds of them. He paused, his jaw tight. And they've brought a witch hunter. The word hit Carenza like a physical blow. Witch hunter. She had heard stories, whispered warnings passed between servants when they thought no one was listening. The witch hunters served the High King directly, tracking down those with unnatural gifts and burning them at the stake. They were relentless, merciless, and they had never failed to find their prey. They've come for me, she breathed. They've come for nothing. Kadarn's voice had transformed into something cold and deadly. The tender man who had held her moments ago was gone, replaced by the Alpha King in full fury. This is Wraithmoor. No witch hunter sets foot on my lands. You don't understand. Carenza gripped his arm, desperate to make him see. If my father brought a witch hunter, it means he knows. About my gift. About what I can see. He's been waiting for proof. And now, her voice cracked. Now he has it. Understanding dawned in Kadarn's eyes, followed swiftly by rage so profound it made the air crackle with tension. Your own father, he growled. Your own father would hand you over to be burned? I'm worth more to him as a sacrifice than as a daughter. The words tasted bitter on Carenza's tongue. A man who delivers a witch to the High King's justice earns lands, titles, favor. I've always known he saw me as currency. I just never thought he'd spend me quite so quickly. Kadarn's hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his blazing eyes. Listen to me carefully, little wolf. I don't care if your father brings 1,000 soldiers and 100 witch hunters. You are mine now, my mate, my heart, my queen. And I will burn the entire world to ash before I let anyone touch you. The ferocity of his vow should have frightened her. Instead, it kindled something warm and fierce in her chest. Your Majesty. The warrior shifted impatiently. Your orders? Kadarn released Carenza reluctantly. Summon the War Council. Double the guards. If Eldorian soldiers cross into Wraithmoor, they are to be treated as invaders. And the witch hunter? A cold, predatory smile crossed Kadarn's face. Let him come. The warrior departed. Kadarn turned back to Carenza, his expression softening. You need to rest, he said. The transformation is draining, and you're still. I'm not hiding in bed while you face my father's army. Carenza pushed herself upright, ignoring the trembling in her limbs. This is my fault. If I hadn't come to that feast, if you hadn't found me, then I would have kept searching until my dying breath. Kadirn crossed to her, taking her hands in his. Finding you wasn't a mistake, Carenza. It was the only thing I've ever done right. Tears pricked at her eyes. How was it possible to feel so safe with someone she'd truly known for only days? But I'm putting your entire kingdom at risk, she whispered. Your people. Are wolf shifters who have survived 1,000 wars? He pressed a kiss to her forehead, tender despite the tension radiating from his body. They will protect their queen with their lives. As will I. Their queen? The words sent a shiver through her. Rest now, Kadirn murmured against her hair. I'll return as soon as I've dealt with the Valdorian delegation. And when I do, we have much to discuss about your transformation. He pulled away, and Carenza felt his absence like a physical wound. She watched him stride toward the door, every inch the Alpha King, and something in her chest howled with the need to follow. Kadirn. He paused, looking back over his shoulder. Be careful, she said. My father is more dangerous than he appears. Something flickered in his wolf-gold eyes. So am I. Little wolf. So am I. The door closed behind him, and Carenza was alone. She tried to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. Her new senses were overwhelming. And beneath it all, a low, constant ache built in her chest, the incomplete bond crying out for its other half. Sleep finally claimed her, but it brought no peace. She dreamed of fire and screaming and the acrid smell of burning flesh, and she dreamed of a woman with her father's cold eyes, standing before a pyre, saying words that froze her blood. The wolf's bride dies at dawn. Carenza woke screaming. Strong arms caught her before she could fall from the bed. I'm here. Kadirn's voice was rough with exhaustion, his face appearing through the haze of her terror. It was just a dream. You're safe. Carenza clutched at him, her heart slamming against her ribs. It wasn't just a dream, she gasped. I saw fire. I heard a woman say. She couldn't finish the sentence. Kadirn's expression darkened. What woman? What did she say? The wolf's bride dies at dawn. The words came out as barely more than a whisper. Kadirn, it felt so real. Like I was seeing something that hasn't happened yet. He went very still. For a long moment, he simply held her, his thumb tracing circles on her back, while his jaw worked with barely contained emotion. The soul sight, he finally said. It's evolving. As your wolf awakens, your gift is growing stronger. You're saying I saw the future? I'm saying you may have seen a possible future. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes, and she saw fear there, carefully controlled but unmistakable. One we now have the power to prevent. How? Desperation clawed at Carenza's throat. My father has an army. He has a witch hunter. If they discover what I'm becoming, they won't. Kadirn's voice hardened with resolve. Because you won't be here when they come looking. Carenza felt ice spread through her. What do you mean? The negotiations with your father did not go well. Kadirn rose from the bed, pacing to the window with the restless energy of a caged predator. He demands your return, claims I abducted you from his home and subjected you to dark magic. The witch hunter has declared that any human marked by a wolf shifter is tainted beyond redemption and must be purified by flame. Nausea rolled through Carenza's stomach. And if you refuse to hand me over? War. The word fell like a stone into still water. Your father has allied with 3 other kingdoms who fear the wolf packs. They're prepared to march on Wraithmoor within a fortnight. Then give me back. Kadirn spun to face her, his eyes blazing with fury and anguish. Never. I won't let your people die for me. Carenza pushed herself from the bed, swaying as her weak legs protested. I'm not worth a war, Kadirn. I'm just one woman. You are my mate. He closed the distance between them, gripping her shoulders with desperate intensity. You are the other half of my soul, the one I've searched for across decades. I would sacrifice every soldier in my army, every ally in my kingdom, every breath in my body before I let them take you. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't be the reason your people suffer. I can't live with that guilt. Kadirn's expression crumpled. He gathered her against his chest, one hand cradling her head while the other wrapped around her waist. There's another way, he said quietly. One that might end this without bloodshed. Tell me. If the transformation completes before the witch hunter can examine you, you'll no longer be considered human under any law. He pulled back to look at her face. You'll be a wolf shifter, subject only to the governance of the packs. No human king, no witch hunter, would have jurisdiction over you. Hope flickered in Carence's chest. How long does the transformation usually take? The hope died as she watched his expression. Weeks, Kadirn admitted. Sometimes months. For humans receiving the claiming bite, the process is gradual. Their bodies resist the change, fight against it. But my body isn't resisting, Carence said slowly. You said I healed faster than should have been possible. You did. But even so, he shook his head. We don't have weeks. Your father's deadline is 5 days. 5 days. 5 days before armies marched. 5 days before the witch hunter came with fire and chains. There has to be something, Carenza insisted. Some way to accelerate the process. Kadirn was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with reluctance. There is a ritual. Ancient, dangerous, practiced only in the most desperate circumstances. He met her eyes, and she saw dread warring with hope in his gaze. It requires the complete surrender of both mates, a binding of souls so absolute that the transformation completes in a single night. Then we do it. You don't understand. Kadirn gripped her hands tightly. The ritual has killed more than it has saved. If your body isn't ready, if your soul resists even a fraction, the magic will tear you apart from the inside. And if we don't try, the witch hunter burns me anyway. Carenza lifted her chin, meeting his anguish with determination. At least this way, I have a chance. Carenza, I'm not afraid of dying. She reached up to cup his face, feeling the scratch of stubble against her palms. I'm afraid of dying without having truly lived, without having known what it feels like to belong somewhere, to someone. Kadirn's eyes squeezed shut, and she felt moisture against her fingertips. If I lose you, he whispered brokenly, it will destroy me. Then don't lose me. She pressed her forehead to his. Trust me to be strong enough. Trust the bond between us. When he opened his eyes, the gold blazed with fierce, terrible love. The blood moon rises tomorrow night, he said. That's when the ritual must be performed. Until then. He pressed a desperate kiss to her lips. Until then, I will not leave your side. Carenza melted into him, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. For better or for worse, she would become a wolf, or she would die trying. The blood moon rose like a wound in the night sky. Carenza stood in the center of an ancient stone circle, her bare feet cold against the frost-kissed ground. Around her, torches blazed in iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across the weathered standing stones. The entire wolf pack had gathered in the darkness beyond the firelight, their eyes gleaming like scattered stars. Kadirn stood before her, stripped to the waist despite the bitter cold. Intricate patterns had been painted across his chest in something dark and viscous that smelled of iron and earth. His amber eyes never left her face. There is still time to reconsider, he said quietly. We could fight. We could run. There are other options. None that don't end with your people dying for my sake. Carenza reached out to touch the painted symbols on his chest, feeling the thrum of ancient magic beneath her fingertips. I won't let that happen. An elderly woman approached, her silver hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes the same fierce gold as Cadarn's. This was Morwen, the pack's eldest keeper of the old ways. The ritual requires absolute surrender, Morwen intoned, her voice carrying across the silent gathering. Body, mind, and soul must be offered without reservation. Any resistance, any fear held back, will shatter the bond and destroy you both. Carenza swallowed hard. I understand. Do you? Morwen's gaze pierced through her. You must trust him with every secret corner of your heart, every shadow you've hidden, every wound you've buried. Nothing can remain locked away. The soul sight, her father's cruelty, the years of loneliness and self-hatred. Everything she'd spent her life concealing would be laid bare. Carenza looked at Cadarn and saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. He too would be exposed, every vulnerability revealed. The Alpha King, stripped of all armor. I'm ready, she said. Morwen began to chant in a language older than kingdoms, words that seemed to resonate in Carenza's very bones. The painted symbols on Cadarn's chest began to glow with soft golden light. Take her hands, Morwen commanded. Cadarn obeyed, his fingers intertwining with Carenza's. The moment their palms pressed together, warmth flooded through her veins. Now open yourself to the bond. Let it consume you. Carenza closed her eyes and reached for the golden thread that connected her soul to his. She found it pulsing between them, stronger than before, and she grasped it with everything she had. The world exploded. Suddenly she was inside Cadarn's mind, experiencing his memories as her own. She felt his loneliness across decades of searching, his despair, his overwhelming joy when their eyes met at the tournament. She felt his wolf bowing before her in recognition. And he was inside her mind too. Her cold childhood, the terror of hiding her gift, the years of believing herself unworthy of love. The bond deepened, transformed into something beyond either of them. Then the pain began. It started in Carenza's chest, a burning pressure that spread outward like cracks in ice. She heard herself scream, felt her knees buckle, but Cadarn's hands held her upright. Don't let go, he gasped, and she could hear the agony in his voice. He was feeling it too, the transformation tearing through both of them. Whatever happens, don't let go. The wolf inside her was awakening, clawing its way toward the surface with savage determination. Carenza's spine arched as bones began to shift and reform. Her vision fractured, splitting between human sight and something sharper, more primal. Through the chaos, her soul sight blazed to life unbidden, and she saw something that froze her heart. The golden thread between them was fraying. No, she gasped. Something's wrong. The bond. It's breaking. Morwen's chanting faltered. The witch hunter's poison, she breathed. It's in her blood. Someone has tainted her. Carenza's mind reeled back to the cup of water Cadarn had given her when she first woke. She hadn't questioned it, hadn't thought to look. But someone else had brought that water to his chambers. Someone had known she would drink it. Father, she whispered, understanding crashing through her. He got to someone in the castle. He poisoned me before us ever. The golden thread snapped. Carenza felt the break like a blade through her heart. She collapsed against Cadarn, her body convulsing as the incomplete transformation warred with the poison spreading through her veins. The wolf that had been awakening howled in anguish and retreated, leaving her trapped between forms, between life and death. Carenza! Cadarn's voice was raw with terror. Stay with me, please, stay with me. But the darkness was already closing in, Her soul sight flickered once, showing her Cadern's face twisted in agony, showing her the wolf inside him throwing itself against the walls of his control. "I'm sorry," she tried to say, but no sound emerged. "No." Cadern gathered her against his chest, his whole body shaking. "No, no, no. You can't leave me. We just found each other. You can't." Her heart stuttered. Stopped. Started again, weaker than before. "There must be something," Cadern roared at Morwen. "There must be a way to save her." The old woman's face was wet with tears. "The bond is severed. The transformation failed. There is nothing. Then I'll follow her." Cadern's voice had gone terrifyingly calm. "If she dies, I die with her. That's how it works, isn't it? When a wolf loses its true mate? Your Majesty, the pack needs you. Your people are nothing without her." He pressed his lips to Carence's forehead, and she felt the warmth of his tears against her cooling skin. "I'm sorry, little wolf. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough." The last thing Carence heard before darkness claimed her was Cadern's voice, broken beyond recognition. "Wait for me. Wherever you're going, wait for me. I'll find you. I'll always find you." Then there was nothing at all. Death was not what Carenza expected. She stood in a vast forest of silver-white trees, their branches reaching toward a sky full of stars she didn't recognize. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, painting everything in shades of pearl and shadow. "You shouldn't be here yet." Carenza spun toward the voice. A woman stood among the trees, tall and regal, with hair the color of midnight and eyes of pure molten gold. She was beautiful in the way that storms were beautiful, powerful and terrifying and impossible to look away from. "Who are you?" Carenza whispered. "I am the first." The woman smiled, and it was both kind and sad. "The mother of all wolves. And you, little one, are standing at the threshold between worlds. Am I dead?" "Not yet. Not completely." The woman approached, and Carenza felt power radiating from her like heat from a flame. "Your body fights the poison, your soul fights to return to its mate. But you are trapped, unable to go forward or back." Carenza's chest ached with phantom pain. "Cadern, he said he would follow me. He will die before the dawn." The woman's voice was gentle but merciless. "Already he has given the order for his own execution. He believes you are gone, and without you, he has no desire to remain." "No." The word tore from Carence's throat. "No, he can't. His people need him. The pack means nothing to a wolf who has lost its mate." The woman tilted her head, studying Carenza with ancient eyes. "Unless you give them a reason to stop." "How?" Carenza grabbed the woman's arm, desperation overriding fear. "Tell me how to go back. Tell me how to save him." "The transformation your body rejected. You must complete it now, here, in this place between worlds." The woman's golden eyes blazed. "Your gift, your soul sight, has always been wolf magic. You are not becoming something foreign. You are becoming what you were always meant to be." "But the poison is in your mortal flesh, not your eternal soul." The woman pressed her palm against Carence's chest. "Here, you are pure. Here, you can choose what you wish to become. The question is, do you have the strength to remake yourself?" Carenza thought of Cadern's face when he first saw her across the great hall. She thought of his voice calling her little wolf, of his hands trembling as he held her, of his tears falling against her skin as he begged her not to leave. She thought of the life they could have together, the love they had only begun to explore. "I have the strength," she said. "Tell me what to do." The woman smiled, and the forest blazed with golden light. "Then run, little wolf. Run toward the pain, not away from it. Embrace the fire that transforms, and when you emerge on the other side—" Her voice faded as the world began to dissolve. Claim your mate before it's too late. The transformation hit Carenza like a thunderbolt. Every bone in her body shattered and reformed. Every muscle tore apart and rewove itself stronger. She screamed, and the scream became a howl that echoed across worlds. Then she was running. Not through the silver forest any longer, but across the frost-covered highlands of Wraithmoor, her 4 paws striking the earth with impossible speed. She was silver-white, the color of the ancient trees. And she was faster than wind, faster than thought. The bond pulsed in her chest, blazing like a beacon. She followed it until the stone circle appeared before her. Dawn was breaking on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. And there, kneeling before the central altar with a blade pressed to his own throat, was Cadarn. "Stop!" The word ripped from Carence's throat as she shifted back to human form, stumbling naked across the frozen ground. Every eye in the gathered pack turned to her with shock, with wonder, with desperate hope. Cadarn's hand froze. The blade clattered to the stone. "Carenza?" His voice cracked on her name. "It cannot be. I felt you die. I felt our bond." "I came back." She crossed the circle in 3 strides and threw herself against him, her arms wrapping around his neck, her body pressing against his as if she could fuse them together through sheer will. "I came back for you." His arms crushed her against his chest, and she felt his whole body shake with sobs. "How?" He gasped against her hair. "The poison, the broken bond." "I remade myself." She pulled back enough to cup his face in her hands, to look into those fierce amber eyes she loved beyond reason. "In the space between worlds, I chose to become what I was always meant to be. Your mate, your wolf, yours." Cadarn made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "Always so stubborn. Even death couldn't keep you from arguing with me." "Never," she agreed, and then her mouth found his in a kiss that tasted of tears and moonlight and forever. When they finally broke apart, the entire pack was watching in stunned silence. "The bond," Morwen breathed. "Look at the bond." Carence's soul sight flared, and she saw what the elder meant. The golden thread between her and Cadarn no longer flickered or frayed. It blazed like captured sunlight, solid and eternal, binding their souls together beyond any power to break. But it was still incomplete. "You claimed me," Carenza said softly, touching the mark on her neck that had reappeared with her transformation. "Now I need to claim you." Understanding dawned in Cadarn's eyes. Without hesitation, he tilted his head back, baring his throat to her in the ultimate gesture of trust. "I am yours," he said simply. "I have been yours since the moment I saw you. Take what belongs to you." Carence's wolf surged forward with fierce joy. She leaned in, breathing his scent, cedar and smoke and mate, and pressed her lips to the curve where his neck met his shoulder. Then she bit down. Cadarn's roar shook the standing stones as her teeth pierced his flesh. She felt the bond complete itself, their souls merging until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When she finally released him, they were both trembling, both weeping, both laughing with delirious joy. "It's done," Morwen announced, wonder in her ancient voice. "The bond is complete. We have a queen." The pack erupted in howls, hundreds of voices raised to the dawn sky. Wolves shifted to human form to embrace their alpha, to welcome their new queen. And somewhere in the distance, the Valdorian army turned back, the witch hunter's power broken by magic older than kingdoms. Carenza barely noticed. She was wrapped in Cadarn's arms, listening to the heartbeat that now echoed her own. "My queen," he murmured, "my heart, my home." "I wore my worst dress to avoid your attention," she said, laughter bubbling through her tears. "And you found me anyway. I will always find you." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Across any distance, through any darkness. You are my North Star, Carenza." She lifted her face to the rising sun, feeling the warmth spread across her skin, feeling the wolf inside her settle into contented peace. She had spent her whole life hiding, terrified of being truly seen. Now she stood surrounded by wolves who called her queen, held by a man who had searched for her across years and kingdoms. She was home. She was finally, eternally home. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. A big thank you to everyone who's following. Your support truly means the world to me.